The 14th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day Lecture is an annual event held to reflect the progress made by the African continent in various areas such as politics, economy and culture. It also serves as a platform to discuss current challenges and opportunities that face the continent and, of course, the way forward. This year's lecture will be delivered by Senegalese Professor Abdoulaye Bathily. He has held numerous positions, including being Senegal's Senior Minister in the Office of the President in charge of African affairs. His most recent former position as the Special Representative for Libya and the head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya. This was held until last month. Professor Bathily joins us in studio to talk more about the 14th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day Lecture being held tomorrow. It's wonderful to host you in studio and thank you for coming in.
Thank you to have me on your program.
It's an absolute pleasure. So obviously tomorrow being Africa Day, you'll be delivering the 14th Thabo Mbeki Lecture under the theme, The New International Scramble for Africa and the Challenges of Unity. It's an interesting theme this year. How does it talk to where we are currently as a continent and our influence in global geopolitics?
Well, Africa faces today a number of challenges of the role of the continent on world scene, challenges of economic development, challenges of peace and security, and of course, cultural issues, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And of course, we will be talking about those issues. And I must say that those challenges are very, very important today. And it is important for us to overcome them. And we will have to discuss how to overcome them, how the African citizens should mobilize, should revive the liberation agenda.
A very big thing as well, and we often speak to it, doesn't matter which country on the continent we speak to, but we also talk of the protection of our mineral resources. How do we as a continent work towards this?
Well, the scramble of Africa by international players is about mainly the African resources, mineral resources, but also the economic assets, other economic assets of Africa. So this is what it's about. And there is a geopolitical play out today in Africa. And Africa is considered as an important playground for most international players, precisely because of that.
Yeah, indeed it is, and it's an issue of trying to do business in a way that benefits the people of the continent, because that seems to be where we fail a lot, is that the outside world seems to benefit more than the people of Africa.
Well, this has to do, something to do with the leadership crisis going on in Africa today. And I think it is important by African citizens at all levels, civil society organizations, political parties, citizens individually, to rise up and to try to do something about these situations so that Africa can become a positive actor, not a subject of history, but an actor of history at this point in time.
Talking about being an actor in history, one of the issues as well that I think we need to speak about is the fact that many countries, external countries, have established their foreign military bases here on the continent, and some justifying the bilateral agreements as protecting their interests. Is this growth an indication that the continent and the African Union lacks in its responses to prevailing peace and security measures and issues? Because, you know, this is also bringing about threats from different terrorist organizations.
The militarization of Africa is today one of the most important challenges we are facing. Of course, under the pretext that Africa needs peace and security, there are a lot of intervention, not really to protect African interests, the interests of the African people, but to, unfortunately, to further their own particular interests on the continent. Wherever, when you look at the map of Africa today, there is a growing concern about the establishment of more and more military bases on the continent, wherever.
And it is a worry, it is a big concern when these things start happening. And I suppose one thing that we need to, again, emphasize is the leadership issues. And we need to see more leadership on the continent. And when you look at the continent, are you satisfied with the quality and the type of leadership that we are getting?
As I said, we are facing a serious leadership crisis in many countries and globally on the continent. The crisis of democracy, the democratic dispensation, the crisis of leading to the management of the resources of the continent, the issue of corruption, the issues of fair distribution of resources among citizens. All these are issues which are of importance to citizens today. And citizens are rising up, especially the young people, the women, who want to have a better share of the resources of their respective country.
I want to look at quite an important event that's taking place at the moment, and that is the visit of the Kenyan president to the United States of America. We're seeing William Ruto there, the president. This is a very historic visit for many reasons, because we haven't seen something like this in a good couple of years. Perhaps you could talk to us about the significance of this visit for the continent.
Well, I'm not in a position to comment on that visit. What I just want to mention is the importance of African leaders to really come together as a unified leadership to face the challenges of the continent. Because the issue of unity is not about one country facing one major power, because this is not the issue. What is most important today, of course, bilateral issues are important for a given country to deal with, but from the perspective of the continent, what is important, there is a need today for African leaders to come together as a bloc to face the challenges of the continent and also to face the challenges raised by the scramble of international players. We should not be allowed to be dealt with individually, but collectively. What kind of strategy we could put in place as a common leadership to face the realities of the world today, to put Africa on the world scene as a progressive actor which look at its own future to shape its own destiny. And this can be done only if we are united. As Kwame Nkrumah has said, Africa must unite. This motto is still very, very, very necessary.
I want to, that is a great message, and one that I hope will be spread during this lecture and also by the rest of the African leaders for tomorrow's celebrations. Today, however, is a very big day as well for a role that South Africa has been taking at the International Court of Justice. Obviously, I imagine you've been following it quite closely with South Africa approaching that court, and now the ruling on South Africa's request for additional measures in regard to what is happening in Gaza and Israel, and South Africa having a very big role in this and leading the way in terms of trying to seek what South Africa believes is justice for the people of Gaza. Perhaps you want to weigh in on, as a continent and as a country, South Africa, what this is doing for our stance again in the geopolitical front.
Well, the action taken by South Africa, I must say, is a very commendable action which is applauded throughout Africa by the citizens, by whoever cares about the issue of liberation, because the issue of Palestine, beyond Palestine, it is an issue of liberation. Therefore, it is particularly a commendable action to be taken, and it should be supported not only by Africans but other peace-loving people throughout the world. And the liberation issue is very important, and I'm happy that South Africa has taken this issue.
It is an important issue, and we wait to see what does happen today. But another challenge, I'm quizzing you on quite a few issues as I've got you here for a very short amount of time. Quite an interesting statement that was made by Aliko Dangote, I don't know if it was this week or a few weeks ago, where he was talking about the fact of traveling as an African within the continent. You need about 35 different visas to move freely within our own continent. I want to get your stance on this, on the freedom of movement within the continent, and how we can sort of look at bringing Africa more together. It's something you focused on quite a bit during this interview, but try and almost integrating it with the whole issue of the free trade area agreement that we've got going, but also the movement of Africans within Africa.
Well, as you know, Africa is divided. When you look at this map of Africa today, it is sure that those borders are colonial borders, of course. And since 1963, when the Organization of African Unity was launched, the aim was to make unity happen. Unity is not just political, it's about also the economy. I believe that if we create the conditions for the African free continental trade, to give opportunity of young people, of entrepreneurs, or business people to go around Africa, to be able to come together, to form enterprises beyond any given country, we will have the conditions for economic development.
Yeah.
Most of our markets are too small to cater for the opportunities, employment opportunities for young people. For instance, everybody talk about the youth bulge. Millions of young people come to the labor market every year in Africa. How to deal with this issue? We can do it only if we create the conditions for economic development through enterprises who are centered towards the interests of the people of Africa, not the interests of international corporations. This, so long as we keep those colonial borders, so long as we go on the what I call the colonial legacy, we cannot cater for young people, for women. And Africa needs economic prosperity. Africa needs to use its wealth, huge wealth, to create the conditions for prosperity for young people, better education, better health. This is what unity is about. It's not just about politics. Politics is important because, of course, in terms of the values, it carries the value of for liberations, the mobilization for Africa to own its own destiny, to shape a better future for all the people of these continents.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your views. I know we will be watching with keen interest as you deliver the 14th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day lecture that's being held tomorrow on Africa Day. We thank you for visiting us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say tomorrow.
Thank you again for having me on your program.
It's an absolute pleasure. That's Professor Abdoulaye Bathily.